Terry. My name is Rose Hood-Buss. I am a prevention specialist at Region 5 Systems. We serve Lancaster and 15 rural surrounding counties. In addition to doing that, substance use prevention, I also am the co-chair of the Lincoln and Lancaster County Suicide Prevention Coalition. And so that's really my role tonight, is to have a little bit of information shared about the suicide rates in Lincoln, and to talk a little bit about that, and then to share the message of hope that we do have multiple resources in our community, some of them sitting right here to talk to us about those resources that we do have. So just to frame for us, in the state of Nebraska, suicide is the leading cause of death for 10 to 14-year-olds, and the second leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds, only behind motor vehicle crashes. And so having a conversation about mental health, having a conversation about suicidal thoughts becomes so important, because when we talk about it, we're not going to cause it to happen, but we can begin to wrap resources around individuals that are feeling hopeless. So tonight you're going to have the opportunity to hear a little bit about what happens in the school building, but then you're also going to hear from the panelists about the resources that are not only in the school building, but also in the community, and how to connect to those resources. And then we have a list of questions that we're going to prime the panel with, but if you have any questions that you would like addressed, we will open that up for you guys as well. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Gretchen first to talk a little bit about those in-school supports.
Yeah. I'm Gretchen Baker. I am the school social worker here at Southeast. I'm here about 3.5 to 4 days out of the week, and then I have some other district assignments. You have a lot of access to mental health support already in the building. I think most people are aware every student is assigned a counselor. And then I'm a licensed mental health practitioner as the school social worker. We have a psychologist on staff. And typically how I describe that is we are here more for maybe crisis intervention, problem solving, kind of seeing what's going on. We are not doing therapy in this school. But all of us are, I think, really good at contacting parents if that maybe becomes a need. If the student is coming down rather frequently or needing to stay in the counseling center for extended periods of time, we're going to give parents a call and start having that conversation. And then that's when we will refer to the many resources we have in the community. So do not hesitate to use us if you are concerned about your student. We are happy to check in with them, kind of get back to you, let us know what we are thinking, what we think might be helpful, and then have that conversation with you when things do get really serious and we think probably some therapy would be helpful. And then where do you go? Because it is overwhelming. There's a lot of quality people in town, and it's hard to know where to start. One thing, if you have had a student, I believe 8th or 10th or 11th grade in the district, in all of our health classes in those grades, we are doing the Signs of Suicide program, and it is a 1 to 2 day lesson that kids will get. They'll watch a video, and the acronym they're using is ACT. Acknowledge that you are aware, that you're concerned about your friend, let them know you care, and then tell a trusted adult. And we're finding that is the hardest thing for our kids. The kiddos want to handle it themselves in their friendship group, and we are really encouraging them, no, that's kind of too big for a teenage brain. Make sure you're letting your parent know, let someone at school know, an adult at school know, so that we can help. So kids should be talking about that as well. We are lucky this year. We do have a therapist actually in our building that we can refer a few students to if they're having trouble accessing that outside of the building. And Miranda will talk later. But that's kind of a new addition to our building, so we're excited to offer that as well.
Okay, thank you, Gretchen.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off with each of the panelists introducing themselves, talking about the organization that they're with, and then also sharing the steps that an individual would go through to be referred and accessing services both in the building and outside. That's a whole lot of information. If you need me to remind you of everything, let me know. Do you mind starting, Dave?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Dave Myers. I'm with the Bryan Medical Center Mental Health Services. I've been with the Medical Center for almost 20 years, and am the manager of program development and counseling for mental health So I manage the counseling center, which is our outpatient clinic, as well as our business development, and then our marketing for mental health. So I wear some different hats. And the services I'm going to talk about are, we have kind of 3 levels of care. We have our emergency crisis mental health, which is through our emergency room. We have our partial hospitalization service, which is kind of the middle level of treatment, and then our inpatient, partial care, and then the counseling center. Mental health services started, we were the first general hospital in the United States to start providing mental health, and that was in 1939, and that was to the adult population. And then it was in the late 80s that we started serving youth, and then it was early 90s that we started a specific inpatient program for child and adolescent services. And over the years have evolved into serving all ages. Our emergency room is it's unique, and it's one of the only mental health emergency rooms of its kind in the United States, where we have a dedicated mental health emergency room in our community. So individuals who are in crisis, meaning persons in danger to self or others, can be self-referred. A family member can bring them in. If I want to walk in on my own, I can walk in. Sometimes the police department will bring individuals to us. We are a voluntary placement, so you have to want services. You'll want to come to the hospital. You would come into the main emergency room at Bryan West, and the nurse, so if I walked in and I had a injured hand, or if I was depressed or anxious and felt like I was suicidal, a danger to myself, I would walk in the same emergency room as if I had an injured hand. The nurse would do an assessment. Once it's determined that I'm physically stable, but I'm there for a mental health need, and they would take me back to the mental health area of the emergency room. We have nurses and social work staff on duty. Nursing staff are on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we have peer specialists in the emergency room as well during peak hours, from generally 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. We see between 500 and 600 individuals a month that come through the emergency room in crisis, so it's a very busy program, but not all those individuals are admitted. But once you come in, you see a nurse or a social worker. They do an assessment. The emergency room physician is consulted, and then the psychiatrist who's on call is consulted, and that individual makes the disposition, the determination whether or not the individual meets admission criteria to be admitted to the hospital. We also have what's called observation level of care. So if you don't meet admission, you're not going to be admitted, but the psychiatrist feels that you're not really ready to go home. The adults stay down in the emergency room. We have 5 beds in the mental health emergency room where you can stay for up to 24 hours. Youth on observation status would be taken up to the youth mental health unit, where you would be on observation status. But if you're admitted, then you would go up to the 2nd level, which is above the emergency room. And we have our youth program. We have an affective disorders program, which is for adults, the general adult unit, and the senior mental health unit. The youth program is a 28-bed unit, generally ages 3 through 18. Average length of stay is about 3 to 5 days, so it's very short-term crisis stabilization. We have a teacher on staff, therapists on staff, psychiatric technicians, chaplains involved, nutritionists, pharmacists, very much an interdisciplinary treatment team that is there to serve the youth. And once it's determined that the individual is stabilized, they've met their goals, whether they're in the hospital, then we're working to get them transitioned out to the next level of care, which may be back home, to a therapist in the community. It may be to partial care, and that's where an individual comes and spends the day at the hospital, then goes home in the evening. Partial care can be several days to several weeks. It really just depends on the psychiatrist assessment of the needs and the individual's needs as far as how long the person would stay with us. Youth partial is actually on the inpatient unit. So if I were coming in for partial care, My parent or guardian would take me into the hospital, take me up to the inpatient unit, sign me in, and at the end of the day, sign me back out. Adult partial is in a different building called the Counseling Center, and we have separate staff that operate that program. And then the Counseling Center is our outpatient center, and we have psychologists and therapists on staff that do traditional outpatient therapy. We have a therapist that works with youth, our psychologist that works with youth, actually a couple of psychologists that work with youth, and then other staff that work with all ages. That service, the Counseling Center, is open to anybody, so a parent or guardian can call in and talk to our nurse coordinator, Jennifer, and she can schedule an outpatient appointment for an intake to meet with one of the therapists. So inpatient care and partial care need a physician's order. So if you come in the emergency room, the psychiatrist would determine whether or not the person's going to be admitted. For partial care, sometimes folks will call ahead and talk with staff, and the staff will work with psychiatrists to make that determination whether or not, and work with that individual's therapist or physician to admit into partial care. So you would not need to go through the emergency room for partial hospitalization. And again, the outpatient services is a self-referral. You don't need a physician's order for that. I do have some information on the table. I talked a little bit about the Counseling Center, the youth program, and within those brochures it talks about the different levels of care that I mentioned. And I also brought a handout about suicide prevention. I know Rose is going to talk a little bit about suicide prevention. I co-chair the State Suicide Prevention Coalition, and we have a handout on suicide prevention that we adopted for the hospital.
Just to add, if we have a student here at school that the counselor, administrator, or myself are concerned about, that they're talking about wanting to hurt themselves or having suicidal thoughts, please know we have a protocol from the district that we will follow every time, and that always involves a phone call to the parent or guardian. And then we will help process with you. Are you already involved in therapy? Should we call that person? Maybe is that time to visit Brian West? But we have steps that we will follow every time, and that, like, I want you to be assured that you will be contacted, and we'll work with you to make a plan for your child.
Would you like to go next?
My name is Melissa Limmer, and I work for the Mental Health Association of Nebraska, also known as MHA for short. We have a lot of programs. We're a nonprofit peer-run organization. So peer-run just means that everyone who is employed by MHA has lived experience of either mental health issues or substance use issues. A lot of our programs are for adults or age 19 or older, but I'm going to run through those just so that you know they're available to you or other people in the community. So we have the HOPE program, and it's higher opportunities through the power of employment. It's a supported employment program. We have the Kia House, which is a hospital diversion house. It's a 4-bedroom house that's located in the community that a person can go and stay for up to 5 days. It doesn't cost anything to the individual to stay there. It's kind of like a bed and breakfast, but you have to provide your own food, and but there's 24-hour peer support. We have, with the house, there is a warm line that people can call, and there's someone available 24 hours a day if someone just needs to talk. We have taken individuals that were 18 with parent consent and prior approval. So that's a house. It's not a lockdown facility, so people can come and go as they wish. Like if someone had a job and they had to go to their job during the day, they could leave, go to their job, and come back at night. Or some people use, like, go to partial hospitalization and come and stay at night. So it's just kind of a different option, alternative for people, a crisis diversion house. We have the REAL program, which stands for Respond, Empower, Advocate, and Listen, and that's a program that is directly linked with, or works directly with Lincoln law enforcement. Basically, if an officer goes out on a call for emergency protective custody, if the person doesn't meet criteria, but still has some mental health needs or substance use issues, the officer can refer to the REAL program, and a trained peer will go out within 24 hours to meet with the individual. That is We do have youth that we go meet with parents. So that program is basically provides peer support and referral to resources in the community. And then our youth program is home base, and it stands for Bullying and Suicides Eliminated, and it was named by youth. So we're doing different things in schools. We do teacher in services where we talk about mental health and substance use issues. We do student assemblies, and usually with that we bring a panel of us to talk because each of our story is a little bit different. So we usually bring 4 to 5 people to talk to students. And then we have WRAP, which stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and that's a program that's 8 weeks long. Usually what we do is we go into the school, we do the panel, talk about WRAP, and then youth that are interested will get a parent consent form signed to participate in the group. We have 2 groups right now in Lincoln Public Schools. We're doing it at North Star and here at Southeast. And so it's during the school day, which is kind of cool for some of the youth because it's sometimes hard after school to get to a group. And it rotates throughout this day, so like the youth doesn't miss the same class period every week. It goes through the class periods. So that's the RAP program is also held in the community too. Brian has an adult and a youth RAP group that is ongoing, and then we have several RAP groups in the community. RAP, for people that don't know what RAP is, it stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and it's a plan that we create for ourselves. So all of us who work at MHA, most of us or all of us who are facilitators have our own RAP plan that we use. And so it can be used for any kind of condition: mental health, substance use, relationship issues, getting better grades in school, anything to obtain and maintain wellness. So we really focus in that group on wellness and not diagnosis or specific mental health issues. It's not something that should be a replacement for other treatment, but it's complementary to. So it is just a tool that people can use. I think.
Can you explain a little bit about like what somebody would see in a wellness recovery action plan?
Oh, sure. Okay, so it's based off of 5 key concepts: hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. And then we go through and we talk about wellness tools, and wellness tools are things that we use to help ourselves stay well. A lot of people like to use the term coping skills, and that's okay, but coping skills implies that we're already in crisis and need to do something, and wellness tools, I look at it as different because it's something that we have to do every day to stay well. It's not just something that we use when we end up in a crisis. So we go through a structured plan. There's the daily maintenance plan that has 3 parts: what I'm like when I'm feeling well, things that I have to do daily to stay well, and then things that I might choose to do. And then the other sections of the RAP plan are triggers, early warning signs, and when things are breaking down. And with those parts of the plans, we come up with action plans. And I don't know, I guess as a peer, those things helped me a lot. The action plans, it was different than other discharge plans and treatment plans that I ever had before, because it was all about action planning. So not only did I identify what those triggers or early warning signs are, I came up with what can I do, what kind of actions can I take if those things happen, because they happen. And so having a plan in place. And then there's a crisis plan, and that has 9 parts to it. We encourage youth to share this part of the plan for sure with their supporters, because it lets them know what helps, what doesn't help, signs that others may need to help and take over for their care. It lists out supporters. So it's a very detailed plan, kind of like a psychiatric advance directive, but a crisis plan. And then there's the post-crisis plan, and people don't fill out the post-crisis plan until after a crisis. So if a youth was admitted to the hospital, it would be a very good time to complete the post-crisis plan, and it's basically 2 parts: timetable for resuming daily activities, so it kind of maps out, maybe this week I'll go to school for 3 days and then 4 days and then 5 days, working out a plan that would work for everyone. And then revisions that need to be made to the other parts of the RAP plan. So kind of helps you reflect back and see if the things in your plan were working or if they needed to be changed.
Kids are really responding. We have one group going right now, and I think it's done really well. I'm excited. I'm hopeful we're going to have one after the holidays, and hopefully we'll start another one.
We also, in other schools, have done wellness groups, and basically in the wellness groups, it's just sometimes when we create our book, it can become a book on the shelf, and so we try to make that not happen. And so we have a wellness group where we do the activities, so like we might make Zen gardens or practice meditation or just kind of a lot of different wellness tools that we actually practice during the group.
So can concerned parents, community members contact you, or do they need a referral through the school or a therapist?
Yeah, I put some brochures out on the table for home base and for RAP, and you can contact us and we can let you know where, I'm an advanced level RAP facilitator, so I kind of know where all of the different community RAP groups are being held, because they are statewide too, not just in Lincoln, rural communities, so I can connect you that way.
So specifically, how does, if there's a parent saying, I think this would be really good for my child, how does that parent get their student at Southeast connected with the RAP group?
I would encourage you to start with your child's counselor. We are sort of keeping a list of kiddos that we think might be appropriate or interested for our next group, and so we'll automatically contact them and contact those parents. But I had one already. Someone had heard about our first group. I wasn't even sure how. And the parent called in and said, can I get my child in there? So definitely start with your child's counselor.
So are there certain criteria that you have to meet? Does your child have to be in, a crisis mode now, or they just,
Actually, RAP is completely voluntary, and so I always talk about you don't have to be ready to take RAP, because we really work with people with different learning styles. If they're not able to create a RAP plan in the traditional way, we talk about maybe recording it on headphones or making it out of pictures, however it works for the person. We do more of that in the community RAP groups than in the ones in school, but basically anybody can use RAP. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
I went through because I was curious as to what we were promoting to schools, to our community, and really having a greater understanding of. Melissa was actually the facilitator. She was great. And I will say that it was so simple, it was brilliant. It was, here are the things that I do daily. When I get up, here are the things I will do. Here is who I would need to check in with. And I could use it for anything, any stressful situation, just moving through, a normal week. You could utilize that. What are the things that I need to do to ensure I'm getting 8 hours of sleep? I'm shutting my phone off at this time. So it's just very basic things, but it's so basic that it's brilliant. Because I think when we get so wrapped up in whatever it might be, we forget the simple. And it really is something that works for any situation. So you don't have to be in that crisis mode for it to work. Right. Brian, would you go next?
My name is Brian Joe. I am Links Specialist with Child Guidance Center. I'm also a youth in crisis therapist at the Youth Services Center. More people probably recognize it as juvenile detention. The Links program is probably 80% of my focus, and LINK stands for Linking Individuals and Families in Needs of Community Services or Supports. LINKS is a collaborative approach between Child Guidance, Region 5, and the County Attorney's Office. Our primary goal is to identify youth that are at risk of becoming involved in the juvenile system So we take a very preventative approach, and we lean quite a bit on school counselors, social workers that inform us of concerns they have with some of their students. The process is relatively simple. If a school counselor or administrator identifies a youth that they feel is maybe going down the wrong path or displaying some signs, it can be mental health, it can be defiance, non-compliance, and what they do is they will send a referral to me, and typically before the referral is sent to me, they will contact the parents, kind of just explain briefly what Links is and see if they're interested in pursuing Links. After they complete the referral, it goes to me, and I contact the families and I provide a brief overview of Links and what we offer. And what Links offers is a free comprehensive family systems assessment, and that, the best way to describe that would be, it's just the youth and at least one parent or guardian comes to my office to meet with me, and we go over quite a few different domains, such as current concerns, family strengths, goals. We look at family history, dynamics, social history. We also look at mental health, substance use or abuse concerns. A lot of the focus is on family history, parenting styles, and the interview or the assessment takes, I'd say, on average anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half. And from that assessment, contact collateral resources such as the schools to get information, grades, behavioral concerns, attendance issues. If their student has an outpatient therapist already, like to connect with them to see kind of what they're working on. Once all of that information is obtained, I make preliminary mental health diagnosis and recommendations for the youth and family. Typically, I would say the most common recommendations, we do a lot of case management services with Region 5 systems. They have a program which is it's called the Prevention Professional Partner Program, and it's wraparound focused, and it pairs a professional partner with a family, and they kind of work on identifying specific goals or plans of action that they'd like to see. And it typically is, I think, a 30-day program. And other recommendations that we utilize, we have done recommended psychological evaluations, substance abuse evaluations. We're very, very big on mentoring services. We work a lot with the Teammates Mentoring Program, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We also provide support for parents, and we utilize Families Inspiring Families. We've also worked at times with Cedars with their Partners in Permanency program. If there's a relationship, if a youth has a relationship with a school counselor, we encourage that they continue to build on that. Additionally, we've done it's an individualized base. It's whatever the youth and the family needs, and we are fortunate to have some very good programs in Lincoln that can meet the needs of the youth and the family. And I would say we typically we would receive referrals from, like I said, the schools. I think last year about 80% of our referrals came from schools. The rest, majority, came from the county attorney. And again, the best way to describe links is it's a preventative process. So we're trying to identify and address the concerns before it reaches the point where that youth is getting referred to the county attorney or is detained at a detention center. What else do you want me to?
So if a parent is concerned and says, I think that might be something helpful, again, do they contact the counselor and the counselor then makes the referral?
And always, if we're concerned and we're thinking links would be appropriate for a child and a family, we're gonna have that conversation with the parent. The thing that we like about it is it's very comprehensive. And so oftentimes, if we kind of don't know, is this depression, is it something else? And it's also free, which we do like that as well. And so that's kind of when we might start recommending links, when parents are saying, we don't know what's going on. School's saying, we're worried too, we're not quite sure. We might make a referral to links just to give us some more information. So it's a great resource, and I'm very happy that we have access to it.
In terms of eligibility, though, there's 3 main requirements. It has to be a school-age youth, which Links identifies as 7 to 18. It's a voluntary program, so it's up to them to want to participate, to want to get help. And we have worked with youth that have actually been referred to the county attorney's office for truancies. That's something that has kind of changed probably over the past couple of years. We also work with families that are considering filing ungovernable petitions, which is the best way to describe that is the parent feels that they've done everything in their power to help their son or daughter, and they just feel that they're out of options. So we really try to work with families to let them know that there are supports out there, and I think we have a very good relationship with schools. And I'd say probably if I had to name the school that we receive the most links referrals from, it's probably Southeast.
Miranda, do you want to talk a little bit?
Hello, my name is Miranda Blackwell. I'm the mental health therapist for Family Service. Family Service is an agency in Lincoln that has several different branches, I can say. And the focus of my program is behavioral health. So we have, I believe, 12 high school, middle school, and elementary schools that house in-house therapy. So just like any therapist you would see at this table or out in the community, I'm a licensed mental health practitioner. So what happens is that we receive referrals for individual, family, mental health services in the school with that student in their school day. We receive those from the counselors, from the administration team, psychologist, social worker. Did I leave anyone out, Gretchen? So our referrals come within, and it is based on youth's parents' permission, youth desire to participate, and willingness to work on or work toward goals that they and the family and the school team feel would help them benefit and be successful within the school day. Family service main objective is, again, like most of these lovely people sitting with me, is prevention. We're trying to prevent major mental health crisis or providing these students with services, language, skills, building on skills that they already have before they get to the perhaps idea of wanting to commit suicide or complete. Let's see, Family Service is a nonprofit agency in Lincoln. They're celebrating 125 years of service in our community this year, and so we've really been promoting ways that students and families can connect and build on family relationships, especially this year, but always. Let's see.
Miranda, does it cost anything for the families to access the services in the building?
No. Therapy within the building from Family Service Therapist is free of charge. We have a wonderful clinical director who goes out and writes a lot of grants within our community to be able to provide this service free of charge to families. Thank you, Rose. So after a family is referred or after a student is referred, we go through an intake process. Basically, we gather background information, history information from teachers, staff members that interact with the student, as well as family members. We try to connect with previous therapists, doctors that students have worked with perhaps in the past, gathering as much support as we can to wrap around for the student. From there, we meet individually or with a family on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, depending on what works within A, the student's schedule, and B, what works best for the family. Let's see. From there, we determine goals. The student usually is very active in their we talk about their role in therapy a lot. Their goals that they can set, things they want to build on. It's not always just dealing with the crisis that is in the moment, though we have that a lot in school therapy. I currently hold a caseload of about 14 students here at Southeast, and I am here 2 days a week, Mondays and Thursdays.
If I'm worried about my student and I want to potentially access in-school therapy, what do I do?
Like a lot of the other people have said, administration, your student's administrator, your student's counselor, Gretchen, the social worker at Southeast, that's how you would access services for in-house therapy.
And we look for students that maybe have a barrier to accessing therapy in the community. Maybe it's transportation is hard, maybe it is financial. That's not the only things we look at, but those are things we do look at. Kids maybe we've been worried about for a while, and maybe the kids have been coming in saying to us, I really wish I could be in therapy, I wish I could be in counseling, and we just haven't been able to make it work for them. Sometimes we'll consider Miranda for that, but it's always a discussion that we have with families to see what the best fit is.
What's your policy on privacy and confidentiality?
In any of the services that are used, whether it's the wrap that's in the school or we're referring to links or anything, there is a release of information signed by the parent. So none of this would happen without a parent being notified and a release being signed. So I would not just have a student go down and work with Miranda and she would not come back and tell me about that session unless a parent was involved in signing paperwork.
And all of the notes and everything will be public record with the school?
Are you talking Miranda's note?
Yes.
No.
Thank you. I'll let her.
For family service and for mental health services at school, there is a HIPAA release that we sign, and it is to and from like the Southeast school staff. That covers that. There's another section that the parent gives consent for services to happen at school and for the therapist to consult with administration, social workers, teachers. All notes, all files are housed at Family Service and they are kept HIPAA protected there. So none of the documentation is at Southeast, none of the documentation is shared unless it's pertinent, like if whatever's discussed in the session, if it's pertinent to student success or concerns with the student, with the administration or the school staff. So, yeah.
I think that's a good time, and Sandy, I promised we'll talk about Morning Hope, but this is a good time to talk about what are the benefits or the areas to think of when signing that release of information. Because that is an option for families to sign a release of information so that if they're accessing mental health services, that the school and the provider can talk to each other. So what's the benefit of that, and what are the areas to think through as a parent?
I can tell you, sometimes we have kids that come in, maybe one time, and they share, they're kind of struggling with something, we'll contact the parent and the child, the parent and I will say, you know, maybe therapy is a good idea, we'll get that set up, and the kid is participating, but they're attending, their grades are good, their behavior is good. That's probably not a kiddo that I'm gonna say, hey, do you wanna sign a release of information, because things are going fairly well. But we have other students that really are struggling. They're finding the need to come down and see their counselor or myself regularly. They're often in crises, and then I might say to a family, what do you think? Would you sign a release so maybe myself or the counselor can talk to the therapist so that we can better help them? So when they come down here, maybe we have better language to use with them. I'll go back to coping skills. You know, what kind of skills are you working on in therapy that we can remind them of to kind of bridge that gap? So in my work with students, that's when I might contact a parent and request that. Does that kind of, the difference clear there? Does that make sense?
You can restrict the information shared to as a parent.
And it's never required. If we ask and we say this might be helpful, a parent can always decline. It's just those were the times I might say, hey, this could be helpful to your student. It might help us better make a plan for them during their day.
We have about 10 minutes. And then we have another group coming up. So just to give you a
We're going to have
time
Sandy
warning here.
share about Morning Hope, and then we'll open it up to questions, and then we have a 2-minute video to end with.
I'm Sandy from the Morning Hope Grief Center. We are a children's grief center, one of less than 100 in the entire United States. We serve children between the ages of 5 and 18 with grief support groups every Monday and Tuesday throughout the entire school year. This is a 10-week program where the child and the parent, grandparent, foster parent, aunt, uncle, grandmother, whoever is in charge of that child, would come to group with them. When the group meets, 2 facilitators will meet with every group that is meeting at the house. We have a 105-year-old craftsman-style house just a whisper away from the Wesleyan campus. We would have 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds in one group. They usually are meeting downstairs with 2 facilitators. The middle school students meet upstairs in another room they've selected with 2 facilitators. High school students in yet another room and 2 facilitators, while all the adults are concentrated on the first floor in a very large living room with couches and pillows and soft chairs, that an environment that seems very welcoming as you walk in, and it's meant to be that way. Throughout this grief support session, children have appropriate activities that they participate in. We know that art and music and writing help younger children talk. They're more likely to share their concerns about having a daddy die when they're busy coloring and they want to say, do you know my daddy died? Somehow that safety helps them to open up, and then when they get that answer, they feel that they can share more things. We were born 22 years ago as a result of 2 middle school counselors who noticed lots of students coming to them for issues, not about grades, not about registering for the next class, but about loss. All kinds of loss, a parent's incarceration, moving across town, having moved across the country, but the most finite situation, that of the death of someone close to them. So the kids who come to us may have the death of a friend, a classmate, the death of a grandparent, a foster parent they've been in that person's care. And then we have a young adult group. And those kids are usually 18, 19 through, we'll even take 30-somethings. And that group actually is now meeting at the Women's Center at the University of Nebraska. We have special days that parents can participate in if they feel like all of those sessions, 10 would be too many. Maybe they'd like to do just something 4 times throughout the year, so we have what's called Art from Our Heart. And our next session for that day will be December 10th, and this time it will be at the Children's Museum. We'll have a group for the very young, 5 through I think 12, a couple of groups there, and then for teens as well. That the caregivers also then have a special group, and then at the magic hour of 12:30, all the groups come together with pizza and talk about what their experience has been and how it has been meaningful for them. I can tell you best through the experience of a little 7-year-old what it's like to come to Morning Hope and why. This little one came to us with her little skinny legs and her little tiny skinny arms and her skinny little long ponytail, and she came from another town outside of Lincoln. Her mommy had died, and so she was going to need to go live with her biological dad. Her 8-month-old baby brother was going to have to go live with his biological dad, now follow the losses with me. So she was going to have to move to a new town, and she wasn't going to be able to go to the same school or the same church, and she couldn't now go to the grocery store that she was always familiar with, or to her grandparents' house 2 blocks away. She was going to have to leave the only bedroom she ever had and move into something different and begin the adaptation with the loss of her mother and the introduction of a new stepmom. So she goes to her new school, and she's been a really good student, learning to read, learning to write, and all those things, and in her former school. And the teachers notice that she's kind of paying no attention and not able to focus all the time. So they will gently and lovingly remind her, this is a time for math, can I help you? No. And on the playground, she really doesn't mix with the other students easily because she wonders how they would be if they knew she didn't have a mom. So she kind of hangs out with not anybody so much. And then one day, a couple girls ask her if she has a mom because they heard she didn't have one. And that playground incident then reflected into the classroom, and lots of tears and lots of interest from other people in the building, in addition to the teacher, the counselor, the social worker, the principal. And they ask to meet with Dad. He comes to school to meet. And one lovely, brilliant person in that group says, there's a place in Lincoln called Morning Hope Grief Center. Here's the phone number. They will work with you throughout a 10-week grief series. They'll have special events you can attend. And now to that list of special things, we have a 3-day camp the end of September where kids can just play and remember and play again and know that they're with other people who have similar situations in their lives. So we'll get back to this little one. She and her dad come to Morning Hope. I'm facilitating the adults. Here is this little one, right there's Dad. And she comes in, pretty tear-stained face for the first week, then the second week, the third week. But she willingly goes with the facilitators for her group, comes bouncing back to the big group where we meet at the end of the evening. Seemingly she's very happy then. Fourth week, she comes bouncing into Morning Hope and sits right there, and Dad's right there. And when it's time to go to group, she just bounces along with the facilitator and goes to her group. And Dad says, I've got to tell you something. This night, we had no tears all the way into Lincoln. I said to her, you know we're going to Morning Hope, right? Yes. And he said, you're going to talk about your mom? Yes. You're not crying. I know. Okay. A little while later, he said, you know, when I came home tonight, your homework was done, your chores were done, and you were ready to go to Morning Hope, and now you're not crying. So why don't you tell me what's going on? I like going to Morning Hope now. Really? Yeah, because there's two other kids like me in that group. They don't have a mom either. And now we know each other, and I'm not alone anymore. I'm not alone anymore. We know when children try to get through some tough spots, they don't pay attention in school as readily as they did before. We know that 18 of 20 children given any group will know the death of someone significant to them before they are 18. We know that distraction in school pulls kids away, helps absenteeism develop, helps relationships disintegrate when we aren't dealing with that grief and getting the gunk out so there can be a clear healing. We talk, we paint, we have lots of activities, but most of all, we unconditionally care for each other. And we care because we always know it's very likely there's someone else just like us. There's a billion hours more I can tell you. But
I will just tell you, we have run a Morning Hope grief group
That's
here at
right.
Southeast once a semester since before I was here. So just to add that in.
And I can speak to that as a parent that had a child go through that group. She lost a close friend last year to an accident, and she was able to go through that group, and it was amazing what it did for her. She wasn't seeing absenteeism or struggles in school, but she was just really having a hard time working through it. And that group was able to unlock and open the ability to talk about her friend, and it did wonders for my family. So an amazing group that she then found out she was not alone in that process. So.
And we also have grief kits in every elementary, middle school, and high school, in media centers you can check out.
Perfect.
Take those resources home and work with them.
Can I have 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got another group. They may come in just because I think some of them should probably watch this
They can
video.
come in if they'd like. So we're going to wrap this up with a video that was done by the Mayo Clinic. And it is young people talking about the things that they need when it comes to suicide prevention. It is a very powerful 2 minutes, but one that speaks exactly to what we would say in any suicide prevention training.
Rose, just give this group a minute. I think someone will come in and watch it here.
It's going to take a second to queue up, so I'll hit pause.
And Rose, to add, on the tables,
You're not
there's-
going to kill yourself. What you
I jumped it way forward. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, on the tables, there's notepads. If you have any questions or concerns that we can't maybe address within the night, if you'd like to leave your name, number, way of contacting you, your question that you have, we would love to hear back anything you would need. So.
All right.
So I just want the booster folks come in. We're just showing a quick video to finish up our presentation on mental health. And it's about 2 minutes. minutes, and then we'll transition over to our booster meeting.
I'm in my ups and downs, just like anybody else.
Maybe more than anybody else.
I can be hard to figure out.
And I like my privacy. I don't want you looking over my shoulder all the time.
But you know your kid better than anybody else. And if you think he's acting different than usual,
Acting really down, crying all the time for no good reason.
or getting really mad, not able to sleep, or sleeping too much,
Shutting her friends out or giving her stuff away.
acting reckless, drinking, using drugs, staying out late,
Suddenly not doing stuff he used to love.
or doing stuff that's just not like him.
It might be nothing to worry about. It might just be high school.
Or it might be something more. He might be depressed. Not just feeling down, really depressed.
It might be that your kid is thinking about killing himself.
It happens. More than you think. More than it should.
And people say, I had no idea.
I thought it was just a phase he was going through.
I never thought she'd do it.
I wish he'd come to me.
I wish he'd said
I
something.
wish I'd said something.
When it's too late. So if you think your kid's acting different, if she seems like a different person, say something.
Say, what's wrong? How can I help?
And ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself? It doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, it helps.
When people are thinking about killing themselves, they want somebody to ask.
They want somebody to care.
Maybe you're afraid you'll make it worse if you ask. Like, you'll put the idea in their head.
Believe me, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, the best way to keep a teenager from killing herself is to ask. Are you thinking about killing yourself?
And what if they say yes?
Or maybe.
Or sometimes,
Well, here's what you don't say.
That's crazy.
Don't be such a drama
you're
queen.
making too much of this.
That boy's not worth killing yourself over. That's not going to solve anything.
You're just trying to get attention.
You're not going to kill yourself.
What you do say is,
I'm sorry you're feeling so bad. How can I help? We'll get through this together.
Let's keep you safe.
A lot of people think about killing themselves, adults and kids.
most of them never tried, but some of them do. So if your kid says,
I'd be better off dead. I can't live with this.
I'm gonna kill myself,
Take her seriously. Find someone she can talk to about it. Someone who knows how to help.
Sometimes kids want to kill themselves because something happened. A breakup, a failure. But sometimes it goes deeper, and it's not going to go away by itself. Get some help. Talk to your doctor.
Or a counselor at school.
Or your minister.
but don't just let it drop.
And make sure that your kid always has someone to turn to. Someone he trusts. Make a list together, right then. 3, 4, 5 names.
Put a suicide hotline number on there too.
Have him keep that list in his wallet, so he always knows where to turn.
Make sure your home is safe. If you have pills she could use to hurt herself, lock them up.
If you have a gun, don't just lock it up. Get it out of the house. With bullets, too.
And one more thing. If you think your kid might be about to hurt himself, don't leave him alone.
Take him to the emergency room.
Call 911 if you have to.
We all have our ups and downs, but sometimes it's more than that.
If you think something's wrong, the only way to find out is to ask. Ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself?
Don't wait until you're sure. Trust your gut.
Because it never hurts to ask.
And it can make a big difference. All the difference. In your kid's life.
We're going to thank each one of you for coming. We do have resources over on the table. One of those is a card that has warning signs, the suicide prevention warning signs, some steps on how to help, and then on the back are different resources. A lot of these resources that you heard talked about tonight are on that card, so feel free to take as many as you would like. Thank you for
And
coming.
would you help me in thanking our panelists tonight for the information they presented? Thank you very much.